After 10 years of deafness, I discovered my incredible hearing. Here's the touching secret I kept. Jamie wandered through the quiet streets of Maple Grove, her heart pounding like a drum in silence. She had spent a decade in a world devoid of sound, isolated yet intimately connected to the beauty of life around her. The rustling leaves whispered tales of spring, the sunsets painted vibrant colors across the sky, and the warm smiles of neighbors lingered in her mind, unheard but felt. Each day felt like a gift wrapped in hope. However, deep inside, her heart ached, yearning to hear laughter and conversations that once filled her days. Her small home, nestled under the sprawling branches of an oak tree, was warm with the love of her family. There was her father, hard-working and gentle, who rallied the family through economic storms, her mother, a nurturing spirit with open arms, and her younger brother, full of mischief. They had weathered trials together, but Jamie's silence had built an invisible wall she longed to break. Each community event she attended highlighted her isolation, the joy from others' conversations a painful reminder of her own absence. Her determination to reclaim her voice burned brighter with every passing day. Then one fateful afternoon, as Jamie scrolled online, she stumbled upon a glimmering light in her darkness, an experimental treatment that promised to restore her hearing. Hope surged through her like a bolt of lightning. She could almost picture the sound of her family's laughter ringing in her ears again, the tiny ticks of time she'd lost encapsulated in every note. But as excitement washed over her, she felt the shadow of financial burdens loom, heavy and daunting. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day fell heavy when her father faced a medical crisis, sending tremors through their family. The sudden news knocked the wind out of Jamie, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she watched worry etch deep lines on her mother's face. Medical bills loomed larger than any dream. No longer was it just about her wish to hear, her family's welfare hung in the balance. Jamie's heart ached with uncertainty. Could she pursue her dream and still knit her family's shattered hopes back together? In the midst of turmoil, Jamie unearthed her secret weapon, a passion for storytelling through sign language. With each movement, she poured her soul onto the canvas of her hands, sharing her dreams, her heartaches, and all the years lost in silence. Her newfound expression sparked a bridge between the deaf and hearing communities in Maple Grove, igniting conversations she never thought possible. Just as she began to find her footing, an invitation arrived, a chance to perform at the local Harvest Festival, her moment to shine. But what would it cost her? Her breath caught in her throat. Would this performance strengthen her bond with the community, or would it shatter her family's fragile balance even further? Jamie felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. As she prepared for the stage, she stood at the precipice of her dreams, uncertain and trembling. Would she finally reclaim her voice, or would silence reign once again, leaving her story untold? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Maple Grove, Jamie stood backstage, her heart racing. The sense of freshly baked pies and crisp autumn air enveloped her, creating a warm cocoon. But despite the beauty surrounding her, anxiety clawed at her insides. She could feel the buzz of excitement from the crowd, but she was still trapped within her pocket of silence. Every clap of hands felt like a distant echo, and the ambient laughter of festival-goers seemed like a foreign language. Jamie brushed her palms against her jeans, trying to shake off the nervous energy coursing through her. She could see the flickering lights of the stage and hear the faint strumming of a guitar, but it all felt surreal, like watching a movie unfold from a distance. Jamie? A voice broke through her reverie. It was her mother, eyes bright with encouragement. Just be yourself up there. You have so much to share. Yeah, I know, but what if it doesn't go well? Jamie responded, feeling the weight of doubt settle heavily on her shoulders. You won't know until you try. They're ready to listen to you. Trust your voice, no matter how you express it, her mother replied, squeezing her hand reassuringly. Jamie took a deep breath, letting the warmth of her mother's confidence wrap around her. The stage manager waved her forward, and as she stepped into the light, the world around her faded into a blur. She felt the warmth of the light wash over her, pushing her fear aside. This was her moment, her chance to connect, to break down walls. The gathered crowd was a tapestry of faces, some smiling, others curious. She could feel them all, their anticipation pulsing in the air. As she took her place, she glanced at the first rows. There was her father, looking both proud and nervous, and her younger brother, who gave her a thumbs up and an enthusiastic grin. That small gesture gave her strength, a reminder of why she was here. With a deep breath, she raised her hands, the familiar signs flowing easily from her fingertips as if they had been preparing for this moment her entire life. As she told her story of dreams, laughter, and the pain of silence, she could see emotions flicker across the faces in the audience. The beauty of her words danced in the air, capturing the hearts of the people. There was something magical about sharing her truth with them, a bridge being built brick by brick. But as she signed about the struggle her family faced with her father's illness, Jamie caught the glance of a couple in the front, their faces stricken with empathy. For a moment, she hesitated, wondering if she was being too open, too vulnerable. Yet in that silence, a deep bond formed between her and the audience that transcended spoken words. As she reached the climax of her narrative, the farewell to her silent years, tears began to blur her vision. With each movement of her hands, Jamie felt a release, as if the burdens of the past were lifting, giving way to hope and possibility. Then, just as she prepared to sign her final words, a sound soft yet thunderous reached her ears. Gasps of shock rippled through the crowd. Jamie paused, her movements freezing mid-air. Was it possible? Had someone lost control of their emotions? Or had she finally unleashed the music of her heart in a way that connected them all? Jamie stood still, heart pounding, uncertain of what could come next. What had sparked this reaction? Did her silent story finally reach the depths of their souls? Would it lead her to the answers she sought, not only for herself but for her father's future and their family? With anticipation, she waited, breath held, for the response that could change everything. In the hush that followed the gasps, Jamie's heart raced as she searched the crowd for the source of the sound. Had she touched someone so deeply that it unleashed a flood of emotions? She scanned their faces, every expression a story, joy, sorrow, understanding. Then she saw it, an elderly woman in the front row, hands trembling, tears rolling down her cheeks. It hit Jamie like a lightning bolt. This woman was resonating with her pain, her journey. It was more than a performance now, it was a communion of souls. The rest of the audience held their breath, caught in the moment between vulnerability and connection. Jamie felt a swell of determination rise within her. This was the truth she needed to share, the beautiful chaos of life, the way silence had defined her, but not confined her. She hadn't just found her voice, she had harnessed it, turned it into a symphony of emotions that wove through the fabric of the audience's collective heart. In a world so loud, she signed emphatically, letting her words resonate, I learned to hear my own heart. The crowd leaned forward, their faces brightened with understanding. She continued, signing in rhythm with her emotions, each movement flowing into the next. I discovered that silence isn't emptiness, it's a space to feel, a canvas to paint my truth. The elderly woman nodded, her eyes wide with recognition, and Jamie felt a jolt of inspiration surge through her. It wasn't about the applause or accolades, it was about connection. About weaving her story into the lives of strangers who felt similarly lost in their own battles, caught in their own silences. As she signed the final words, a wave of warmth washed over the audience, a tangible current of shared understanding. Jamie took a deep breath, ready to bask in the anticipation of their response. But instead of applause, a hauntingly beautiful melody drifted from the back of the crowd, a violin, a sound so evocative it transported her straight into the heart of her emotions. She turned to find a young woman, eyes closed, lost in her own moment of expression, playing an ethereal tune that seemed to swell and echo her sentiments perfectly. The music wove through the air, dancing with her signs, blending seamlessly into a symphony of hope and healing. Gasps morphed into soft murmurs and tears flowed freely now. Jamie's pulse quickened. This moment was bigger than any she had imagined. They were all part of a shared experience, a tapestry woven from threads of life and love. When the final note faded, a stunned silence enveloped them, the audience still digesting what had just unfolded. Then one voice broke the stillness, calling out, "More. We need to hear more." That one cry unleashed a cascade of clapping and cheering, drowning her in waves of energy. Her heart soared, encouragement surged through her veins like a pulse of electricity. Jamie stepped back, her cheeks flushed with disbelief, exhilarated at the unexpected turn of events. The light from the stage felt warm against her skin as she realized what this moment meant not just for her, but for so many. Their voices were ready to rise, just as hers had, but as she smiled and waved, she felt a wave of unease wash over her. What if this was just the beginning? How would she harness this momentum, this unexpected connection? And what awaited her beyond this festival? In the stillness of their struggles, with questions swirling in her mind, she took a deep breath, knowing that this was her moment to take a leap into the unknown. Would she find the courage to explore this new path? And if so, where would it lead? Jamie stood on the stage, still trembling from the electric energy that surged through her. The applause echoed in her ears, a sweet sound she had always yearned to hear pulsing through the air, a sign that something deeper had ignited between her and the gathering. Yet, with the rapture came a rush of anxiety. She was exhilarated, but a nagging uncertainty nestled inside her like an unwelcome guest. People began to rise from their seats, moving toward the stage, their faces lit with hope and reverence. The woman with tears in her eyes approached first, wrapping her arms around Jamie in a gentle embrace. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You have no idea how much your words meant to me tonight." Joy blossomed in Jamie's chest as she hugged her back. It felt like turning a key in a lock. Her expression of silence had unlocked something in them all. What if, she wondered, she could keep this connection alive? Could she turn this fleeting moment into something lasting? "Your story, it's like you were speaking my life," the woman continued. "I too have struggled with my silence, my own battles. I'd lost hope until tonight." Jamie felt that spark again. The woman's vulnerability mirrored her own, weaving their souls together. She wanted to hear more, to know the stories behind each tear, each cheer. But before she could respond, others crowded closer. A young father stepped forward, his son nestled against his hip, his small, innocent face glancing shyly at Jamie. "You inspired so many of us," he said. "I brought my son here to help him find his voice. You've shown him it's okay to be scared. We can all learn from the silence." His words filled Jamie with a sense of purpose. Maybe it was time to take this further. Why not share more stories, build a community where silence was honored rather than shunned? The crowd buzzed with anticipation. Each person waiting for something, a continuation of the bond that had formed in the depth of their hearts. Jamie felt the call. "Perhaps I could create a workshop," she blurted out, her voice surprising even herself. "A safe space to explore our stories, our silences." A wave of excitement washed over the audience. It was as if Jamie had named the very air they all breathed. The challenge now was how to turn this inspiration into reality. "Would you all join?" she asked, the question hanging, trembling with possibility. They roared in agreement. Jamie felt tears prick at her eyes again, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling around her: fear, joy, hope. The idea felt big, daunting, but the thrill of it all was electric, surging through her like the sweetest melody. As the excitement ebbed, Jamie's mind raced alongside her heart. She had opened a door, and now it was her turn to walk through it. What if she failed? What if even one person didn't connect the way the others had? But then she thought of the elderly woman, the father with his son, the music that had bridged a gap. She had come too far to turn back now. "Okay, let us do this," she declared, the fire in her voice igniting her audience once more. They erupted into cheers, and in that moment, amidst the jubilant noise, she tasted the sweetness of new beginnings, but just then, in the midst of the chaos, there was a shadow in the back of the crowd. A figure stood alone, eyes dark and distant, watching with an intensity that sent shivers down Jamie's spine. Who were they? What story did they hold? The festival faded into the background as Jamie's focus sharpened, her heart racing again, not from applause this time, but from the unknown threat beneath the surface of this hopeful celebration. What secrets would be revealed if she ventured closer to the truth? Jamie's pulse quickened as she stared at the figure lingering in the shadows. The joyous crowd began to fade around her, their cheers decreasing into a muffled hum. It was as if the world had closed in, leaving only the mystery of that solitary person with a gaze that pierced through her. This was the first time she had sensed an unsettling energy hanging in the air, but now it felt real. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the warmth of the support surrounding her. Yet, her curiosity was a strong current pulling her away from the safety net of applause and cheers. "Excuse me," she said softly to those around her, her voice steady despite the unease in her heart. "I'll be right back." With tentative steps, she made her way towards the edge of the stage, her eyes locked onto the stranger. As she approached, she could see the details forming. The man was tall and lean, with deep lines etched into his face, perhaps from worry or sorrow. He stood apart from the crowd, his arms crossed tight, disconnecting himself from the vibrant atmosphere. She took another step closer, suddenly aware of the way her fingers trembled slightly. Who was he, and why did it feel as if he was carrying a weight heavier than anyone could imagine? "Hey," she called gently, trying to bridge the expanse he had created between them. "Are you okay?" His dark eyes shifted to meet hers, and for a moment, Jamie saw a flicker of something that looked a lot like pain. The noise from the festival seemed a universe away as he took a small step forward. I heard you," he said, his voice low but filled with intensity, "and I thought it was time I finally came out of my silence." His admission filled Jamie with a mix of awe and concern. "What do you mean?" she asked, inching closer. "I've spent years not speaking," he explained, his gaze wavering from hers to the ground. "Not wanting to be heard. I thought I had nothing to offer until tonight, until you stood up there and shared your story." She felt a stirring inside her, a connection beginning to bloom between them. "What stopped you from speaking before?" Jamie asked softly, genuinely wanting to understand. He inhaled deeply, his face twisting with emotion. "Fear, pain, the sound of my own voice felt foreign. I thought if I stayed silent, I wouldn't hurt anyone, and no one would hurt me. But listening to you tonight, I finally saw the voices around me, people like me, like you. It was overwhelming." For a moment, they stood in silence, a shared understanding spiraling between them like a thread binding their hearts. Jamie felt his fear echoing her own, reminding her of the long road she had traveled. "You're not alone," she whispered, her heart aching at his vulnerability. "None of us are." The man looked up, and in that instant, she saw a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. Could I really join your workshop? Can I share my story too?" "Of course," Jamie replied, her voice breaking with emotion. "That's what it's about. Sharing, healing together." But as excitement ignited in her chest for this potential connection, she felt a heavy weight shifting in the atmosphere around them. The louder cheers from the crowd faded away. Something deeper, something they couldn't see, was lurking beyond this moment of hope. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the venue, causing both Jamie and the man to jump. They turned towards the sound, their hearts pounding. What had just happened? Was this a sign of trouble unfolding, or was it something more menacing? Each pulse of uncertainty twisted inside Jamie. This was a night of new beginnings, but it felt like walls were beginning to close in. She knew they had to confront whatever darkness lingered just out of sight. "What was that?" the man whispered, a shadow of fear crossing his features. "I don't know, but we're going to find out," Jamie replied, her voice firm with resolve. An unexpected wave of bravery surged through her as she took his hand, ready to face the unknown together. But as they moved towards the source of the noise, she couldn't shake the feeling that this night held more than just healing. It might very well unearth secrets they weren't prepared for. What awaited them in the deep, unlit corners of the festival? Jamie and the man, whose name she still didn't know, crept closer to where the sound had erupted. As they advanced, the vibrant lights of the festival seemed to dim, shadows pooling around them. The joy of the night had warped into an eerie silence, making the air thick and heavy with unease. "What if it's bad?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder, his voice barely a whisper. Jamie squeezed his hand tighter. "Whatever it is, we face it together." She focused on the path ahead, her heart racing, and silently hoped that her confidence would buoy him. They rounded a corner and found a small crowd gathered. A makeshift stage had buckled under the weight of an overloaded sound system. Wires were scattered, and nearby, a speaker lay cracked on the pavement, a loud thud that had sent everyone into a state of shock moments ago. "Is anyone hurt?" Jamie asked, stepping forward. A familiar face from her workshop emerged from the crowd, a woman named Lisa, her face pale with worry. "No," Lisa answered, visibly shaken. "We all just jumped back. I thought someone might have been trapped under it." A collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd. Jamie felt the tension drain from her body as she took a moment to assess the situation. The repairs would take time, but thankfully, no one was injured. As she turned back to the man, she noticed he was staring at the scene, his expression conflicted. "This is what I've been so afraid of," he murmured. "Chaos. I've avoided this. Avoid open spaces, where things can go wrong." "Yeah, I get that," Jamie said gently, remembering her own struggles with fear. "But isn't this what life is? Messy and unpredictable." He shifted uncomfortably. Jamie could see his mind racing, wrestling with emotions. "But what if I can't handle it?" His voice trembled, a plea for reassurance. "You've handled so much already," she replied, her heart swelling with empathy. "You're not defined by the past. Right now, you have a chance to stand up, be part of the chaos, and find your own voice." He looked at her, uncertainty swirling in his dark eyes. But as the crowd began to move back to the festivities, the atmosphere shifted again. The distant laughter and music throbbed like a heartbeat, steadying the scene, inviting them back to the warmth of camaraderie. Before he could respond, a loud pop erupted from the broken equipment, sending sparks flying. Everyone gasped, and Jamie instinctively pulled the man closer. He flinched, but Jamie noticed something as she gazed into his eyes. He was still there, ready to stand beside her. "Face it," she said with a calm force, "maybe it's time for us both to show the world our stories. No more hiding." A flicker of determination crossed his face, and he nodded, though fear still flickered beneath the surface. As they stepped closer to the heart of the festival, Jamie felt the weight of his hand in hers. It wasn't just a connection, it was a pact, a decision to embrace whatever lay ahead. "This is just the beginning for us," she promised, her voice a whisper above the restarting music. "We're not alone in this." With renewed purpose, they moved back toward the thrumming crowd, every cheer igniting a fire within both of them. But as they made their way back, the crowd's buzz was broken again, this time by a sudden loud yelp. Jamie's heart dropped as she saw a young girl pointed towards the edge of the skirting trees, where someone was lurking watching. "What now?" she wondered, an icy shiver running down her spine. "I don't know, but we need to find out," the man replied, his voice steady, resolve growing stronger. What was waiting for them in the shadows? Jamie felt her heart race again, but this time it wasn't just the anxiety of the moment. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as she squinted toward the trees, trying to discern any movement. The shadows seemed to thicken, and for a fleeting instant, she felt trapped in a world of dark possibilities. The crowd, now erupting into snippets of laughter and small conversations, felt miles away. The laughter of joyful festival-goers contrasted sharply with the ominous figure lurking just out of sight. "Stay close," she whispered, gripping the man's hand tighter. He nodded, eyes wide, every instinct in him screaming to retreat. But Jamie could see something else brewing beneath his curiosity, perhaps. A silent yearning to confront not only whatever was in those shadows but also the fears he had long kept at bay. As they approached the skirting trees, Jamie caught glimpses of movement. She could hear the rustle of leaves and, perhaps, a soft footfall. Suddenly, the figure stepped forward, half illuminated by the festival lights. It was a young woman, disheveled and with a wild look in her eyes. The woman took a cautious step toward them, her voice shaky but resonant. "I need help," she called out, gasping for breath. They're coming." Jamie felt a chill race up her spine. "Who is coming?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "The Watchers," the woman exclaimed, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "They want me to go with them. You have to believe me." The onlookers, still caught up in their revelry, were unaware of the brewing storm, but Jamie and the man were captivated. A mix of compassion and dread coursed through them. "Just breathe," Jamie said, trying to keep the woman calm. The man stepped forward slightly, his gaze locked on the newcomer. His eyes, once filled with fear, now reflected a glimmer of determination. "Who are they?" he asked, his voice steadying as he drew strength from Jamie's presence. The woman looked from one to the other, her expression tightening with hope, as if they were her salvation. "Those who don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They want to silence me. Ever since I spoke out, they've been hunting me." Jamie felt a surge of empathy wash over her. She glanced at the man beside her. "This is your chance," she urged him softly. "Together, we can help her. It's why we came here to break free." His grip tightened on her hand, a torrent of emotions swirled within him. "I'm scared," he admitted, barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to run anymore." Jamie turned back to the woman, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and bravery. "You're not alone," she stated, her voice stronger now. "We'll face them together. Tell us what to do." Suddenly, the sounds of the festival dimmed, and all that filled the air was the woman's labored breathing. Jamie scanned the area, her resolve solidifying. They were stepping into the unknown, but moments like this defined who they were. They couldn't let fear dictate their actions any longer. As the first faint murmurs of footsteps approached from the tree line, the woman's eyes widened in terror. "You don't understand. They're not just here for her. They're coming for all of us." And suddenly, Jamie realized this was more than just the start of facing her fears, it was the awakening of something far deeper, a call to arms against an unseen enemy. The realization hit her hard. What had they just stepped into? What truth waited just beyond the shadows? "Let us go," she urged, her heart pounding as they unsheathed newfound courage. Together, they took their first steps into the darkness, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Jamie's heart thundered in her chest as they ventured deeper into the tree line, the chaotic festival sounds fading into a ghostly silence. The deeper they went, the thicker the shadows grew, wrapping around them like a heavy blanket. The woman, still trembling, glanced back, her eyes darting as if she sensed something lurking just beyond the flashes of light. "What do you know about them?" the man demanded, his voice low but edged with urgency. It was clear he was no longer simply afraid, he was ready to fight. The woman sucked in a breath, her wild eyes focused on the path ahead. "They're sentinels of conformity. They don't want anyone to stray from their rules. I thought I could speak out, but now I've made a target of myself." Jamie felt a shiver run through her. The Watchers weren't just a group, they embodied a much larger fear, a fear of nonconformity that ran deep through society. She thought about her own life back in the city, how she had often felt pressured to fit into preordained molds. "We can't let them break us," she stated firmly. "What if we use this moment to make a stand? Not just for you, but for everyone who feels trapped." The woman looked at Jamie, hope flickering in her gaze, but doubt still clouded her face. "But what if we fail?" she whispered, her voice trembling. There is no failure, the man chimed in, lifting his chin defiantly. If we stand together, we can outshine their darkness. As if the shadows themselves were listening, a low rumble vibrated through the earth, and they froze in place. Jamie felt the energy shift around them, the air thickening, making it hard to breathe. The first of the watchers emerged, tall figures draped in cloaks that shimmered darkly under the flickering lights. There she is, one of them said, his voice a deep, chilling echo. The one who dared to speak. Jamie's stomach twisted. They were more than mere enforcers, they were reminders of all those who deep in silence before. She felt the urge to shrink back, but the resolute gaze of the man beside her anchored her. No! She shouted, stepping forward. Her heart raced, but this wasn't the time for retreat. You won't take her. She has the right to be heard. The watchers paused, their attention drawn to Jamie. They looked at her, blending incredulity with curiosity. For a moment that felt suspended in time, the world held its breath. Another rebel? One of the figures asked mockingly. You think you can resist? You're outnumbered. Something welled up in Jamie, the desire not only to protect the woman but also to embrace her own long-buried voice. Maybe we're outnumbered, she replied, her voice gaining strength. But we're not outmatched. You can't silence us all. There was a pause, a moment where she felt the tiniest twitch of hope. This wasn't just her fight anymore, it was for everyone whose voice had been stifled. She glanced at the man and the woman beside her and saw a flicker of determination reflected back. Suddenly, the footsteps of more watchers echoed from the trees behind them. Jamie's heart sank as dread washed over her. They're surrounding us, she said, panic creeping back in. Stand firm, the woman whispered, gripping Jamie's arm. We face them together, or not at all. In that instant, a wave of unity surged between them. Jamie felt her resolve harden like steel. They were not just fighting for their own freedom, they were confronting a darkness that threatened to extinguish every flicker of hope. As the watchers advanced, the air charged with tension, a chant began to rise among them, a daring movement forged in the face of fear. And suddenly, it clicked for Jamie. This was more than a battle, it was a revolution. The realization filled her with adrenaline. They wouldn't be cowed, but as the chanting grew louder, so did the shadows closing in. What would happen when they took a stand? And more importantly, how would they ignite the spark of change in the world outside those formidable trees? Together, they braced for what was to come, ready to fight for their voices, and delve deeper into the unknown. The watchers advanced, their cloaks swirling ominously as they encircled Jamie, the woman, and the man. Jamie's heart raced, each beat echoing her resolve. She felt the energy in the air shift, crackling like static, and the chant surged from her lips, rising alongside the others. Together. 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 Their united voices broke through the oppressive silence, transforming trepidation into a force fiercer than fear itself. One of the watchers stepped closer, a sneer distorting his features. You think your voices can drown us out? You're clinging to a foolish hope. Jamie took a breath, the warmth of collective energy wrapping around her. Hope isn't foolish, she shot back, fiercely. It's our lifeline. With each word, she felt the woman's grip tighten and the man's presence steady beside her. This wasn't just a moment of defiance, it was a crystallization of everything they had ever suffered, an urgent realization that every whispered dream could swell into a mighty roar. The watchers recoiled slightly, uncertainty creeping into their icy expressions. There was something mesmerizing about the chant, an undeniable call that united them all, each voice an echo of countless souls silenced in the past. Let us through. One of the watchers commanded, taking another step forward. We will not be cowed by your empty words. Jamie's blood surged with a mix of fear and fire. Our words aren't empty, she declared, feeling her courage blossom. They're filled with dreams of freedom. Dreams of a world where we can be who we really are. The woman's light green eyes sparkled with unshed tears. Jamie could see the flicker of a new realization take root. She wasn't alone, they were all fighting for their right to be heard, to exist beyond the walls of conformity. The man took a step forward, next to Jamie, anger fueling his stance. You think you can dictate how we live our lives? No more. The chant began to morph into something more profound, each voice ringing with emotion. People from their past rose in Jamie's mind, friends who had felt the pressure of conforming, family members silenced by the expectations of society. Suddenly, a crack of thunder echoed above them. The sky split open, pouring down a relentless rain that threatened to wash them away. Jamie gasped as the first drops hit her skin, chilling yet exhilarating. It was as if the heavens were joining their cause, fortifying their resolve. The watchers hesitated, their confidence wavering as the rain pelted down. It transformed the atmosphere, washing away the darkness, lightening the burden they all felt deep inside. The chant grew louder, raw and powerful, digging into the ground, urging the earth to shake off apathy. Look around. Jamie cried, raising her voice above the storm's roar. We are not alone. This fight is bigger than us. There are countless others waiting for someone to take a stand. The phrase echoed through the watches, as the rain continued pounding around them. Jamie saw flickers of doubt arising in some faces, uncertainty dancing in their eyes. It was a tiny crack in the wall of conformity, a glimmer of hope piercing the shadows. With renewed determination, Jamie pressed on. If there's ever been a time to decide to break free from silence, it is now. The rhythm of their chanting intertwined with the beat of raindrops, creating an anthem that began to ripple through the trees. The watchers stood motionless, caught in a moment of disbelief, as the words of conviction swirled around them, urging them to join the tide of change, but just as it seemed they might sway, a crackle of energy surged through the air, cutting the moment. A voice, sharp and cold, echoed through the trees. You dare to challenge us? You'll pay for this rebellion. An undeniable chill swept through Jamie, but she refused to back down. They had come too far. What would happen next? Would they face the full might of the Watchers? Or could the courage they had ignited in themselves and others truly spark a change that would usher a new dawn? With hearts pounding, they prepared for what was to come. Ready to fight for their newfound freedom. The storm raged overhead, strands of rain cascading down like an awakening tide, washing away the night's fears and igniting a defiance that stretched beyond the mere moments of their lives. Jamie, the woman, and the man stood together, poised like warriors ready to battle shadows. As they faced the encroaching Watchers, they drew strength from one another, feeling the power of shared purpose breathing life into their resolve. The echoes of their chant rang in unison, drowning out the threatening voice with conviction. Together. 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 It was a battle cry of solidarity, a profound series of waves crashing against the resistance. Jamie felt that spark. What had begun as a whisper of hope now surged through her like wildfire, binding them in shared dreams. The lead Watcher, his face mask of cold authority, glared at them, still hesitant, having seen the tide change against his certainty. This rebellion is but a flicker. You can't sustain a fire amongst the darkness. Jamie stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and adrenaline. You're wrong. Our flames are stoked by the voices you've tried to silence. We'll shine brightly through this chaos. The sincerity in her words resonated with her companions, who stepped alongside her, hands clenched in determination, and then, through the downpour, came the figures of those who had felt compelled to rise and join their cause. Friends and neighbors from the festival appeared, drawn by the energy that pulsed in the air. Faces illuminated by defiance, voices ready to harmonize, they surged to the front lines alongside Jamie and the others. With a rush of energy, the group collided with the Watchers, who stood their ground but could feel their ranks falter. You raise your collective voices against our silence, sneered the lead Watcher, but Jamie could see the uncertainty creeping into his eyes. It was the flicker of a flame, the uncertainty of questioning the norm. Silence isn't our only choice. Jamie shouted, her voice ringing out like a bell. You can try to put out our fire, but we will rise anew. This isn't just about tonight, it's a promise to ourselves. The words spilled from her, powerful and raw, each one breaking another chain. The raindrops began to thrum louder against the earth, amplifying their fervor, weaving the fabric of resilience together. The echoes of Jamie's voice took on a life of their own, mingling with the crowd's newfound energy. Stand with us. Embrace the beauty of diversity, of voices struggling to be heard. Tonight is our stand, united against conformity. A ripple ran through the assembly as people found their courage, grasping hope instead of fear. Jamie's heart soared at the sight of so many faces illuminated with shared purpose, shimmering through the rain. Together, they formed an unbreakable wall against the encroaching darkness, breathing life into that moment. As the storm threatened to tear them apart, Jamie felt a spark within her heart, clarity taking hold, an inspiration growing. This world doesn't have to be ruled by fear of silence, she declared, pushing through the chaos. Every voice matters, and together, we can create a symphony of change. The watchers blinked in disbelief, unsure of how to combat the rising tide. But with each chant, they felt themselves losing their grip on power. The storm became an ally, wrapping the crowd in its fierce embrace as they began to chant, their voices swelling, reaching deeper into the heart of who they were. Their raw emotions knitted together against the darkness, crafting a tapestry woven from dreams fought for. With every moment that passed, the watcher's confidence faltered further. Doubt quivered in the air, and Jamie could almost sense the light breaking through the clouds. Remember the stories we carry, the truths we've buried. The laughter and pain, the silence and fear, it all joins us in this moment. The crowd erupted, applause breaking like thunder, catapulting Jamie's spirit. Then, the weight of the watchers began to lift. As they hesitated, Jamie felt her heart clench in anticipation. You can either stand against us or join our chorus, she shouted, taking a step closer. This is bigger than any one of us. It's about forging a world built on understanding, where every voice, every note can resonate freely. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a couple of the watchers looked between themselves and then back at the palpable energy radiating from the crowd, shimmering with newfound strength. It was the power of unity they hadn't anticipated, an overwhelming force that threatened to topple their very essence. And then, in an astonishing moment, one watcher hesitated, raising a hand hesitantly. Perhaps there is something to be learned from your passion, he called out tentatively. It was a crack in the wall, the first echo against centuries of compliance and longing. Jamie felt a rush of warmth fill her, her heart swelling with hope. Together, we can build a world that encourages everyone to share their truth. Your silence doesn't need to continue. Join us. With each invite, courage crystallized in that vulnerable space. One by one, murmurs began to pulse through the ranks of watchers, their own struggles surfacing like echoes from within. Legs stirred, uncertainty began to shift, and for the first time in a long time, they questioned the weight of their own silence. Rain continued to pour, washing the ground with a renewed vision of hope. Jamie turned to the woman and the man beside her, both glowing with the same realization. This was transformation. This was healing. They had weathered storms alone, but here, together, they found voices, narratives, and facets of their identities they didn't know could shine. In that moment of clarity, with raw emotion enveloped by the swirling tempest, a new dawn began to flicker in the distance. They couldn't erase the past, but they could ignite a change bold and unwavering. United under rain and resilience, Jamie, the woman, and the man stood before the edge of a new world. This is our rebellion, let us bring the music back to life, she declared, and together, they would write a new narrative for a future where every heart could sing. Love and acceptance would guide them as they turned together toward the audience, ready to face whatever would come next. Now was their time. This was their moment. And the march toward liberation had only just begun, beginning with voices rising like the chorus of a symphony ready to play. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss these transformative stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment your feelings about the ending and the power of unity. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.